What is an adult problem that you were not prepared for? Kitjin said. Constantly feeling like I'm still a child trying to adapt to grown-up life? I always assume there are actual adults in charge of things, but I'm nearly 40 and I'm meant to be that adult. I feel like a kid in an aged shell. EVRs18 said. I work as a valet. Recently a guy in his mid-30s kept coming outside a restaurant pacing and smoking. Eventually he turned to me and said, I'm about to propose. I've never done this before, man, I'm a mess. In that moment I needed to tell this adult, in my eyes, something reassuring like my dad would to me. It was eye-opening. I told him to just be himself because that's what your whole relationship is built on, nothing else is wanted or expected. She said yes. Street Independent 62 said. I mean, I'm a college kid, so I'm not even that old yet, but as the oldest of 6 kids in my family, try your best to own being the one to go to for advice. Yeah, it's scary sometimes because you have to think of an answer on the spot, but I personally really like it when someone younger than me asks for advice on something. Also because teaching helps you learn better too. Ipsock said. Seeing the decline of the generation of adults I grew up with and realizing that it might not be that long before they are all gone and that my generation will be the adults of the family. Logically I know that it's just a perception issue, but I can't help but feel like they were more worthy of the title than us kids. I also can't shake the feeling that each generation is weaker than the last. My dad was breaking horses into his mid-50s. His dad was an ironworker as well as an outfitter in rural Idaho. Grandpa was a tough bastard. My grandfather on my mom's side was Orpahane as a child, quit school after the 8th grade so he could work, was a Navy hard hat diver, and at maybe 5 feet 6 inches was capable of being the most intimidating person in any room. He was a kind man honestly, but he did not have an ounce of give in him if you pissed him off. And then there was my great-aunt who was a literal pioneer in remote parts of Idaho. I have copies of parts of some of her diaries. The shit that woman endured, near starvation, complete lack of any medical care, think 70 miles in mountainous terrain to the nearest town which might have a doctor, disease, brutal living conditions. These are the people in whose footsteps I follow. How do you ever feel like the adult in the room when those are your reference points? 143,019 said. I have 3 kids and it's really important to me to be a good parent. My parents were strict, but I did not have a very open relationship with them, as was common back then. I had tons of chores, had to get good grades, and could not talk back, but I also felt like my parents never knew the real me. For my kids, I wanted to be the mom they could to come with anything, and I am. But I can't help but notice that the more we focus on empathic, positive parenting, the less resilient the kids are. My kids and all their friends are highly anxious, fear trying anything new, break down over the smallest things, need to be constantly entertained, and seem to be overwhelmed so easily, and they all have much easier lives than I had as a kid. I know the world is different, but I feel like that can't be the only reason. I wish I could figure it out. I am stricter than most parents, but I do believe that children are their own people and not extensions of their parents. My kids are great kids, but by the time I was their age I had a job, was cooking dinner 3 nights a week, doing the laundry for the family, and truly wanted to work as a team with my mom, who was a single mom. Cirrus Ramparts said. The devolving of friendships. Sending a once-a-year text asking, hey, how are you? Haven't heard from you in a while, and getting a generic things are great. How about you? Response. Then being obligated to say things are great here too, because anything more than that is too much for them. I miss the days when my friends and I could talk for hours about seemingly any old random thing. I miss having real conversations. I miss being involved in people's lives, and having them involved in mine. Astrostudio said. I think the reason people struggle so much with this is because A. They're trying to engage with people in a way that doesn't match with where their life is now. And B. They're not also developing new friendships along the way. I have close friends from around the time I was in high school, some of whom I haven't seen in person for years, who I still consider close friends. We might not talk every day, or even every month, but I make the effort to specifically reach out to them and ask about what's happening in their lives. And not just how are things going with you, but actually asking about what's happening in their lives now. Their families, their new house, that thing I heard about them from somebody else. I also put in the work to make new friends. I made an entirely new friend group over a shared interest that was new to me in my late 20s, again in my early 30s, and I'm actively doing it again right now. Some of those friends I stayed friends with, some I didn't. You don't need to have the same friends your whole life because not only are your old friends in a different place but so are you. Hit tip for making new friends later in life: you know that cool project you wish you could do but don't have the time to take on yourself? Look for other people that want to do the same thing and do it together. Division of labor makes it achievable, plus you get a built-in friend with the same interest. Burner Blue said, "This was 100% me until last year. I was the only single dude in all my friend groups and I felt a bit awkward hanging out with some of my best friends because they had kids and I'm terrible with them. What I later realized through both current experience and thinking back on conversations when I was single, I was the guy a lot of those friends wanted to hang out with. When I was available they knew the hangout wasn't going to be a child hangout and we weren't going to talk about daycare options or new medications for asthma in kids or setting up playdates. We'd hang out, have a few drinks, and pretend like it was the old days. They'd kill for those opportunities more often but I kinda felt like they didn't want that since they had kids and families now. Truth is, everyone needs some good bonding time with old friends to catch up and focus on something other than kids for a few hours. They'll appreciate you for the opportunity." Burnt Toasties 8664 said, "Holidays are just overrated and stressful and way too expensive. As a kid it's great because you get up to 2 weeks off school, even though Christmas is really only 2 days, and then New Year's is 1. Nobody understands that sometimes buying gifts for an assload of people is extremely expensive and hard on the people that earn minimum wage and are focused solely on attempting to provide the people living with them a good Christmas. But for my family the excuse for that is just get a better job." And then they go on to explain your cousin's a software engineer. He makes great money. The difference between myself and my cousin? His dad paid over $6,000 to send him through school, provided him with a free place to live for the entire 4-year period, paid for his car gas phone books. That's why he's a software engineer. Crap, sorry about that, haven't been able to vent before XD. Trowie 2019 said, "I am 40. I am Molly. I trim my toenails when they punch through my socks or my wife complains that I'm shredding the sheets. I have never removed a callus. I didn't even know what calluses were until mine got to the point that I could hardly walk from the pain of having quarter-inch stalagmites of dead skin driving into my feet. I lost a bit with my wife and had to go get a pedicure, which was a total waste of $50 getting a slimy foot rub from a high school dropout that looked like she was going to barf. So after that little gem of an experience I shopped around a bit and bought this bad boy, as per the tribe of Amazon's reviews. In Amazon we trust. First of all, let's get the griping over with. This should be jet black with a skull and crossbones, not chocolate brown. Power tools should all be black. A death motif is always a plus. This sucker should come with hardware for mounting it in your garage, or better yet a black holster you can strap to your leg. Because it's far more dangerous than any pistol. Han Solo can outshoot Greedo with this thing. Like all men, I tossed the instructions in the trash, whipped off my socks, and started filing away. The first thing I noticed was that A, it didn't hurt, and B, I was grinding off an unbelievable amount of dead skin. Because it didn't hurt, I decided it was defective and started furiously sawing back and forth. Grind, 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 and now skin was flying like dust from a bandsaw. That was more like it. After about 30 minutes on each foot I had the kind of beautiful, pink baby feet that fetishists dream about. Chucked the meat dust into the garbage, took a shower, and thought nothing of it as I went to bed. Trowie 2019 said, "I'm pretty sure the next morning I awoke to the shrill from the smoke alarm going off. Did you know your feet can spontaneously combust? My beautiful pink piggies looked like denuded Vienna sausages. My heels were blood-red and inflamed. I could hardly make it to the first aid kit. I wound up slathering about a gallon of Vaseline on each, wishing I had BP around to dump an oil spill on me. Through sheer manly perseverance, red, screaming profanity and crying like a wee girl, I was able to get socks and shoes on, despite my wife's humiliating laughter. I spent 2 crippling days hobbled to my desk at work and trying to walk as little as possible. Mornings and evenings meant more Vaseline and trips to the grocery store for Ericano vats of the stuff. By the way, Standing in the express checkout with a pained expression while buying huge containers of Vaseline and a baguette your wife asked you to pick up is a great way to strike up a conversation with folks. Made some good friends, yes sir. Naturally, I bought the product in question and my life has been significantly better for it ever since. Actually, I think I've now bought at least 4 of them in the past decade. They're made of metal and literally look like cheese graters, but my heels are so tough that after a few years I wear the metal down until it's smooth. Not his real name said. The time suck that everything is? I was finally able to snag a PS5. It got here Thursday night. I would love to play right now but there's so much I have to do. Had to clean the house, including the balcony so we can get ready for the plants coming. Had to rearrange the garage because we're just out of space. Cook lunch, cook dinner. Tomorrow I need to go shopping, do some laundry, put together a new bureau because my last one decided to break in half for some fucking reason. When I was a kid, I thought that adults had all the time in the world. Julius Veruder said, "One, moving forward without my father's counsel is terrifying, and he is 15 years in his grave. 2, dealing with an adult child with mental health developmental issues. He is not messed up enough to generate help or empathy. Just dirty looks and judgment. But he will never be self-sufficient, and the rest of my life will be spent trying to find a way to keep him from burdening his siblings. 3, you continue to progress in your career, and then you suddenly hit an age that is no longer welcome, and you still need to progress and earn, but are cast aside. You can still contribute, and you still have people depending on you, but the world is done with you. Social Security is years down the road, so you hang on by your fingernails, getting kicked in the teeth over and over and over, but refusing to let go, because people are depending on you. 4, pain." Summer Tosser name said, "Being single as I enter middle age. I'd never imagined that I would still be single in my mid-30s, but I'm apparently not attractive to the kinds of people I'm attracted to, which is perfectly fine. I'm not entitled to find romantic love, but as I look at reaching middle age and watch what my parents have gone through taking care of my grandparents, I'm beginning to realize that I'm probably not going to have anyone to take care of me at that age. That's a tough reality. Edit, it, lots of really terrible advice." Anubis said, "When I was a kid I thought adults didn't have a problem with doing chores because my parents did all that stuff without complaining. As an adult I found out that the only reason adults aren't complaining is that there's no one to complain to. I had been hoping that an adult brain would somehow find chores less tedious or something. Nope." Funk Metal Bass said, "It's amazing how little work you can actually get done when they're small. Their constant need for interaction is just exhausting and unrelenting. I can totally see why some parents plop the kids in front of the TV and or go out for cigarettes. Also, why is childcare such a damn nightmare? Maybe it's just my area, but the daycares have long wait lists. You have to prepay weekly even if you can't use it, and when the kids get sick every few weeks and can't be in daycare, you have to reach out to 10 different babysitters to piece together coverage for the next week, which is like double the cost of the daycare, and it still seems to require rearranging my work schedule to incorporate some WFH aspect." Ultimate Ampersand said, "The logistical difficulties of being single. Everyone told me it was progressive and enlightened to enjoy being single, and if I was just self-actualized enough then I would enjoy it. Well, now I have no one to list as an emergency contact. Yes, I did ask a friend, and he said no one to take care of me when I'm sick or injured. No one to sit by my bedside when I was in the hospital. When I had unexpected surgery on my leg, I had to limp to the pharmacy to pick up my own prescription. If I need someone to drive me to the airport, I have to pay a stranger to do it. My furniture is very hard to assemble because it's designed to be assembled by 2 people together and I have to do it by myself. All the apartments bigger than a studio are priced on the assumption that you're either rich or a dual-income household. I have no idea who to designate as a medical proxy after my parents are gone or too old. And thank God I probably don't want kids, because I have no one to co-parent with and I'm not equipped to be a single parent. Depression. Everyone says reach out. Ask for help. People want to help. But no one ever told me what to do if I reach out and they don't respond, if I ask for help and they say no. Of course they're allowed to say no, but like, what now? And all the phone calls you have to make to find a therapist, not just calls to potential therapists, but also calls to try to convince your insurance to cover it. if you even have insurance. I'm so depressed I stayed in bed until 7 p.m. yesterday, but now I'm supposed to successfully navigate the US healthcare system? Kid a Curb Kiker said. Rising costs of living with decreasing wages, employer wage theft, unaffordable healthcare, and despair. Not that I didn't deal with these things as a child. I worked from a young age to support the family, but neglected health issues, or congenital, don't improve with age. The rest of the economic issues seem to be spreading, swallowing more people, and I don't think anyone really can prepare for it. 11B Apathetic said. Being married young and going through adult growing pains as a couple. Was with my wife for about a year before I enlisted at 19. Turned 20 in basic and she turned 19. I got stationed in Hawaii while she was still on the East Coast. We got married a few months later cause, why the fuck not? People change. People change a lot. We are mid-late 20s now and still are married, but we are most definitely very different people than we were then, and growing together wasn't easy. Still isn't always easy. Even though it is working for us, it has been difficult, and I'd advise most people to avoid getting married that young. 25 said. I have a disabled sibling. I have so much admiration for my parents for being able to raise my brother and give up so much of their own lives to prioritize his. I hated it while I was a teenager and felt frustrated when I had to make sacrifices in my life, but I realize now how much harder it was for my parents, especially my mom, who effectively gave up her career plans to be a full-time carer. I'm sure you are doing great in what it is a very tough job. Creative Name said. Being hit on by older men. There's a very wide range of adulthood. 18 is just not on the same level as 28, 38, 48, 58, etc. As an 18-year-old you realize this and so still consider yourself a kid next to those ages, but the fact of the matter is that by law you're an adult, and you look like an adult, so older men will hit on you. The worst part is that when this happens your first thought is to say I'm only 18, and then you realize wait, that's a green light to them, not a red light.